as you know, we've been kind of zeroing in so much about lifestyle, and this is a very important part of the Cancer Schmancer movement because we really feel like lifestyle is the origins, for better or for worse, of how our body functions. So that's what the consciousness raising is that we want to do and what we hope you leave with today. So right now, we're going to look at how we can reduce the chemical exposures in our lives, the things that may be triggering cancers, inflammation, and all kinds of other ailments to our families and to ourselves. So let's start bringing out, our wonderful panelists. First, actor and activist Ed Begley Jr. Hey, doll. How are you? We are so grateful to have him. He was here last year. Mwah. Mwah. Come sit down. You can sit where, yes, right
Ed's
next
gonna
to
make
me
her
if
laugh.
you'd like.
I can't do that.
And, we're very happy to have you. And now the CEO of the Environmental Working Group, who is partners with Cancer Schmancer. We're very grateful to have Ken Cook. Come on out, Ken. Environmental Working Group is great. They come out with lists. Thank you. Mwah.
How are you?
Come sit down over here. Wherever you want. Yeah, we'll put girl in the middle. And now a new addition to our environmental group of activists is someone that is the CEO of the Plastic Pollution Coalition. This is an organization that I think is of vital importance. She's going to talk to you about how plastic has a profound impact on our health and our environment. So please give a warm welcome to Deanna Cohen. Thank you, darling. Please have a seat and let's sit down and get the ball rolling. Okay, well, we're so happy to have you all here.
Likewise.
We can start with Ed. I like last year, Ed said that, we have to be the change with our, our purchasing power in the appliance store, in the auto showroom, and in the grocery stores, because we have the power to dictate manufacturing trends, which is what we need, because no one else is going to be telling us. So why don't you talk about, you really walk the talk, and I applaud you for that. He lives his whole life being an environmentalist. How do you think, we talk about large global issues, and sometimes our heads swirl and it becomes overwhelming between, global warming, which is so important, and environmental toxins and mercury in fish, and you name it, it runs rampant. It's totally fueled by big business greed. But how can we today, when we live here, start to change our lives and each one teach one and see a change starting local and going wide?
Well, we look at some of these big ticket items and we go, there's nothing we can do about them. It's too far gone. Look what we did about ozone. There's a problem we became aware of in the 80s about ozone depletion. We eliminated CFCs, made a big change. People said, the naysayers said, you'll never be able to afford a refrigerator again. You'll never be able to buy an air conditioner. Not the case. So we can make big global changes.
Hairspray will never be the same.
Exactly.
It works the same.
Exactly. So industries hate to change, but as you suggested early on, we have our vote on election day. We have a vote when we vote right to our elected leaders and our corporate officials, but our biggest vote is how we buy things or don't buy things. That's a big, big vote. So I've eliminated, thanks to this woman to my left, we're going to introduce in a moment, but Deanna Cohen, the Plastic Pollution Coalition, I stopped buying all single-use plastic. Let me be clear what I mean. I don't mind that my glasses are made of plastic or there's plastic in my computers. We'll eliminate some of that over time. But right now, we can stop right away today taking single-use plastic. Rather than taking a straw, I got this reusable straw here. I got reusable different containers for hot beverage, cool beverages that I use for that sort of thing. No more plastic bags, but you'll hear much more eloquently from Deanna Cohen from the Plastic Pollution Coalition. And we want to keep that bag ban that's been a part of our
Yes,
laws.
on 67.
Yes, on 67, so we're hoping to keep that going, and you'll hear more from Deanna
But
about
let
that.
me ask you also, you know, in your home, you and your wife and your family, you are very concerned about the products that we use, so much so that you started your own brand.
Cleaning products. I have Begley's Earth Responsible Products. I had another line before that. And if you're going to have a home like mine is, that's very energy efficient, sealed up tight, all the more reason to not have carpets that are off gas, to buy cleaning products that are toxic. Most people are out there with me with a sign, a placard. We want to close this hazardous waste dump. Good for you for being there. The worst hazardous waste dump is not near your home. It's in your home. It's under your sink.
More toxic than living across the street from an oil refinery is your homes.
It's true.
That's
all this
true.
plastic stuff, formaldehyde and different things. We built a LEED platinum home just recently, just finished it. I want you to come by and see it. You guys.
Is that your house?
My
When
new
you
house.
Say we? Wow.
Yeah, Rochelle and I built a wonderful home. We had people build it. We went out there with hammers and nails. But it's a beautiful home. It's LEED platinum. And part of that you get the LEED points, is having a non-toxic home, because they know it's going to be well sealed up and well insulated. So you can't use the carpets that are off gas. You can't use the formaldehyde. You can't use those toxic.
What about wood? How do you keep?
All reclaimed wood from old barns and buildings, and it's not done with a toxic urethane or anything like that. It's a natural finish. It's beautiful. You come and look at it yourself. You tell me how it looks. It's gorgeous. It's gorgeous, and it's non-toxic.
Excellent. Okay, well, since you've kind of started tipping over to Deanna, let's talk to Deanna too, because she also opened up my mind. I mean, I thought I was being conservative about plastic, but there were things that I didn't know. I didn't know that every piece of plastic that's ever been manufactured is still here. I didn't know how much plastic was littering our waters, and I didn't know how much plastic leaches into our foods and how damaging that is to our health. So why don't you speak to all those?
Sure. And my background, by the way, is I'm not a scientist, I'm an artist. I'm a visual artist. And I've been making work out of plastic bags that I cut up and sew back together for about 27 years. So through working with the material, I started to see that some of it breaks apart, breaks into smaller pieces. And this was exciting to me because I thought it meant it was organic and ephemeral. And when I researched that further, I found out that it's actually not the case, and that most plastic that we've created, unless it's been incinerated, where it becomes particulate pollution, is still in existence in one form or another. And we're finding a ton of it not only in the ocean and in our waterways and our environment, but we're also finding them in animals, sea life, animals that live in the sea. Many people in the world depend on their protein source coming from the sea if they eat seafood or clams or mussels or fish or things like that. And we're actually, now there's a study by Chelsea Rockman which is showing that plastics ingested by fish, that the chemicals used to make the plastic and attached to the surface of the plastic are being absorbed into the fish flesh. So it's really something of concern. I myself still eat some of those things, so I'm eating them now knowingly, but it is something of concern to look at how plastic in general is impacting us.
How pervasive it is.
It's so pervasive.
And what about, you know, all of this, you know, the water in plastic? I mean, a bottle this big, I take a drink of it and then the plastic is thrown away. And what is that plastic? What is BPA?
So Ken can probably talk about BPA a little bit better than I can, but what I've learned just in the last few years, so there are these chemicals that are used to make plastic, just mini overview. Plastic is primarily made from a byproduct of processing petroleum. So most plastic is petroleum-based, and the chemicals that are added to it to plasticize it, to give it the qualities we associate with plastic, whether we're using a petroleum-based carbon source or a plant-based bioplastic carbon source, are bisphenols and phthalates. And these groups of chemicals have been identified now as endocrine disruptors. And what we're finding is that even when something says it's BPA-free, the alternatives to bisphenol A, BPS, BPB, BPC, BPF, are equally bad, if not worse. And I think that's really cause for concern, but on the flip side of that, we also can choose to buy things that come packaged in glass or in paper or in wood or in food-grade stainless steel, or we can bring our own containers with us when we go to. We're so lucky, a lot of us live in Southern California. We have these fantastic open farmers markets, we can grow food at home. I mean, we're so, so fortunate. And it's really worth it, even if it's an incremental step, to begin to figure out how to reduce your plastic footprint. When we talk about plastic, we're really focused on single-use and disposable plastics, and the fact that most of our food and beverages are packaged in them, and it's a real concern. How do we provide water to people? I realized something, Fran, just in the last 2 years, which is when I went to UCLA. When I was in college, I remember when the bottled water machine arrived on campus, and we were all started buying plastic bottled water, and it was kind of cool. It was almost like a status symbol to buy, Evian or these different, European waters or Fiji, and which are coming from really far away. And I look back now, and I've only realized it in the last 2 years, that was a seminal moment in time. It was a dangerous moment. It was a moment when we stopped paying attention to our municipal water sources. And it's allowed things like Flint, Michigan, what's happening in Flint, Michigan, it's allowed these things to happen where we stopped paying attention to our local water. So what I think needs to happen at this point is we all need to develop a consciousness about this and go back and put pressure, be it regulations, legislation, or just gentle pressure or pressure, mighty pressure as consumers on our municipal water sources to filter and clean the water better and to provide safe, clean drinking water to everyone in our community.
And to not put chlorine and fluoride in it. Why do we need systemically to have every cell in our bodies have those chemicals? So.
That's a whole panel.
All right, that's true, that's true.
Discussion.
Well, let's go over to Ken. Thank you, Deanna. I mean, I can't wait to get you all talking together. But Ken, there's over 80,000 chemicals that the FDA has no idea how toxic they are, if they're carcinogen, if they're suspicious, how they mix together, and what kind of a dangerous cocktail that is to you. But him and the Environmental Working Group come up with lists, and I encourage you to check them out, and we are partners with them, and Cancer Schmancer, and what kind of sunblock do you use, what kind of cleaning products do you use, all of these things that help you to make healthier choices. But can you speak to the chemicals that we're using? Why is this happening?
Good question. And first of all, thank you for inviting me here. And I'm such a fan of Cancer Schmancer in this event. And congratulations.
Thank
it's really
you.
Amazing. Thank you. We've made a mess of things. There's no other way to put it. We've been careless about the kinds of chemicals released into the environment. We've allowed the chemical industry and the companies that use these chemicals too much of a free hand to use them in whatever way they see fit with very little regulation.
Self-regulating, which is the fox guarding the hen house, if you ask me.
No, it absolutely is. I mean, personal care products is a good example, and I know Stacy Malkin's going to be speaking about this in just a moment, but if I describe to you how the regulatory system worked for personal care products, you probably wouldn't believe me, so I'll leave that to Stacy. She's more persuasive, but they're essentially unregulated. And what we've learned as we begin to study these more is that a lot of them have some very disturbing toxic effects, even individually, and then we never look at the combination. So just to start from where we normally start as we tell this story, and I'll be very brief, we tested umbilical cord blood a few years ago. No one had done this before, oddly enough. We took 10 samples from 10 babies through the American Red Cross research program. We sent it to laboratories all around the world, and we found an average of 200 toxic industrial chemicals in umbilical cord blood. So babies are being exposed before they leave the womb, all right?
And then we're all scratching our heads wondering why does every other kid have learning differences or is on the spectrum? I mean...
We looked at these chemicals against the known lists of carcinogenic agents and neurotoxic agents, chemicals that hurt the nervous system, immune system, active chemicals, and so forth. And we found that in many cases, dozens, if not hundreds, of these chemicals had one or more of these effects. We had well over 100 were carcinogens, just to go to the key topic today. And so from that, we realized we need to avoid these exposures in moms who are thinking about starting a family or adding to a family. But throughout our lives, and Ed had it just right, we need to take the steps to avoid these exposures. So we now know, and this is based on the limited research that's been done by scientists around the world, but we've identified 1,400 chemicals that are known to cause cancer. They're either known human carcinogens or they're likely to cause cancer based on criteria set by regulatory agencies around the world. 420 such chemicals, according to EWG's research, have been found in people. So it's not an abstraction that these carcinogens are out in the environment somewhere. They're in us, and they're in us from the time we're born. And so the goal, I think, is to avoid these exposures, and thank you for mentioning it. We do have a lot of tools developed at EWG where you don't have to go and live in a yurt, you don't have to give up modern life, you don't have to just photosynthesize. You can find a way to live a healthy, modern, engaged life and avoid tens of thousands of what we call exposure events every year. We can show you how to knock out pesticides in produce, even if you can't find or afford organic. We can show you how to buy personal care products that don't have carcinogens or neurotoxin or chemicals that affect the immune system. They're out there. And the only thing I would, and same with cleaners and on down the line, but the additional point to make to what we heard earlier, and it's so right, buying habits make all the difference, but now they're starting to make a difference to the companies that make these things. And we were slow to realize that at EWG. We were putting all these consumer product ratings out there. And Ed, we were trying to do the best in our family. You know my wife, Deb Callahan, we were careful to shop. And it never occurred to me that companies, I'm an environmentalist, not so much a businessman, that companies were watching the marketplace. They were buying our web traffic and seeing how many people were coming. It's 1,000 people an hour come to the Skin Deep database. They knew that when we met with them. And they were basically saying to us, we're going to reformulate our products so that they score better in your system. So the consumer demand changes not just your own personal exposure, it sends a signal to the marketplace, as Ed said. Companies start jumping in, and they're starting to take on some of these big players.
Because at the end of the day, manufacturers don't want to kill you, they want to sell you. And they'll sell you anything that you're willing to buy, which right now is anything.
Correct.
So let's just, go back a little bit here with everything that we've just talked about and its impact. Even, I just want to touch gently on the GMOs that are fueled by Monsanto and Roundup Ready herbicide that's spliced into the plant that becomes perturbed, because some of the things that we, particularly women who hold a lot of body fat, expose ourselves to, even if you quit exposing yourselves to it, often has like a 10-year half-life where it stays in your body. So, we have to start thinking about that too. What we do today, it's like we all got used to the idea that, sunburn that we got when we were teenagers may come back to haunt us when we're 35 or 40. And that's true with lifestyle as well, even if we stop today. So we really have to stop as quickly as possible. Let's try and hear just one thing from each of you that we can have our audience take away so that they can proactively, change their lives. Okay, Ed, sorry.
Read the labels, read the labels, and if you can't pronounce it, it might be a good idea to find another product.
That's a good rule of thumb.
Start right there.
It should be ingredients that might have grown in your grandma's garden. That's it, baby.
Yep.
If you see if your toothpaste has poison disclaimer on the back, walk away from the toothpaste.
Here, here.
Deanna?
Actually, along the lines of toothpaste, there are whitening toothpastes that are made with microplastics, microbeads in them, and it's listed usually as like a polyethylene ball.
The whitening aspect to it?
Yeah, it's also in facial scrubs, and so actually we're really lucky. It kind of slipped through just this last year, but Obama signed it into law. They were actually banned in certain beauty products
That's excellent.
earlier this year, so that's a total win.
Wow, that's wonderful. And-
But hang on, but what's not a win and what we all have to vote on for November 8th, or if you're voting by absentee now, is these two bills that one will uphold the California plastic bag ban, which was already passed into law and signed into law by Governor Brown 14 months ago, and the implementation of it was blocked. It's yes on Prop 67, and then no on Prop 65. Prop 65, when you read it, sounds like it's really great, and it's actually an industry-backed bill that was put on the ballot to confuse everybody. So
And what is that?
it creates a kind of pool or a fund so that money that's paid for reusable bags supposedly goes to some groups or is divided in some way, but it's actually, we look at it as a way of penalizing companies and markets that have already implemented the bag ban. So,
Okay, so it's no on 62, yes on...
65.
no on
No on
65,
65,
yes on
yes on
67.
67.
Yeah.
Yeah. I did a nice video.
Yes, you
on
did.
that.
Yes, you
Yeah,
did.
we'll start
It reached
really.
over 100,000 people.
Oh, that's nice. That's nice. And you know what do you know? I mean, look, you have so many things. Even talking about good filtration systems on your website for
love that.
water, very important. Because Deanna brought to my attention that what we need to do is make our water, our public water, cleaner and healthier, and not resort to bottled water in plastic bottles. So forget that, and let's put pressure on our elected officials to give us our rightfully, clean water. We're entitled to clean water, so that's great. Yeah. So, Ken.
That's exactly right. Water shouldn't be safe enough to wash your car with. It should be safe enough to drink and give to your kids
And
all,
bathe
right
in.
out of the tap and bathe in and so forth. Well, I would say to this audience in particular, if you had to pick one area where leaving this conference you wanted to take a crack at prevention, look at your personal care products. Go to Skin Deep, ewg.org, and then Skin Deep is the website. And you can go through most of the personal care products that you use day in and day out. Women use an average of about a dozen. And in those dozen, and this data comes from our online survey of some years ago, but there were, over 120 chemical ingredients in these dozen or so personal care products. And if you just go through and think through what you do to get ready every day before you go out, and everyone's a little bit different, go to Skin Deep and start picking the ones that are green or rated better, lower numbers, a 0, 1, or 2. That's what millions of people have been doing. That's starting to change the personal care products industry. But that's just one example. I think you can feel good about that. And I'm not even suggesting that you throw out everything that you already have. Just use it. But then when you replace it with something that's healthier. that's safer.
Eco-friendly. If it's good for the planet, it's good for you, and vice versa.
And actually, you can download that Skin Deep
app?
app on your phone and
The
use
Dirty
it.
Dozen?
The Dirty Dozen too. But the Skin Deep app, you can download
yeah.
it on your phone, so when you're actually in a market or a shop, you can look products up. It's
This is a lifestyle that you try and introduce your family to, and it becomes fun and very proactive. And you'll see how fast you'll start to look at everything differently, and you'll start to question it. You are the change agents, every single one of you. You can't wait for them out there. Just do it. Do it for yourselves. Do it for your family. Make a difference. Reduce your risk of cancer now. Thank you all so much.
Thank you so much.
I can't
Drescher.
thank you enough. You're
I
awesome.
You're so great.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.